Hello out there, Internet. I am Elizabeth Estravig. I am brand new to costuming, and I'm going to do the thing that's been going around with the quarantine 20 questions. Yeah, I figured I'd start with that and say hi. Nobody's done it in armor yet, so I figured I might as well. I was taping something else in it, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm a professional tailor for film and TV, but I'm brand new to this whole YouTube thing. So hopefully at the end of this you'll have more questions for me. Hi there, little guy. So feel free to ask me whatever you like, and I will try and answer them either in the comments or in another video. So let's start with what was your first costume? Basically, I went to my first Renaissance fair and I saw the dresses there, and that's more or less where I got the bug. I didn't do much sewing before that at all. Pretty much just really basic Girl Scout stuff. I saw the dresses, I wanted a dress, but had no money. So I decided to make one. That's William Shakespeare. He's, probably going to demand pets at some point. He's a sweetheart. Hi, sweetie. Anyway, so I went on to elizabethancostume.net and learned a lot, and I made my first costume from the skin out with bits and pieces that I found around the house, and my Christmas money went towards quilting cotton that I thought looked kind of like, the portrait that I wanted it to look like. And thankfully my grandmother was like, quilting cotton's probably a good one to start with as far as sewing goes, so I had a little bit of help there, which was great. And she taught me a lot. And so that was my first one. I'll link below the photographer that took the picture of it, and put the picture up here for you to look at. The picture makes it look a lot better than it was. I did forget my French hood the day of the photo. So that is a bit of scrap that I threw on my head, which is something I've done multiple times now, so for different photo shoots. Alright, so favorite costume or most proud of costume? Probably my favorite costume was one that I did. I was a stitcher on for Santa Fe Opera, and I worked on this really awesome half skeleton, half Spanish dancer costume, and I was working with a draper that made the most beautiful patterns. Yes, William, I'm sure they enjoy all of the shaky camera. Come here, buddy. There we go. Okay, this is how I end up doing a lot of my shooting. I mean, not in armor, but with the cat on me. Pretty much anything that I do at home has someone deciding to help out. Yeah, that one was it went together really well. The two first hands that I worked with on it were amazing, and I've gotten to work with one since then on a TV show. It's been a while now, but that one's still one of my favorites. As far as most proud of, I think the armor that I made for the Masked Singer, the lion for the Masked Singer, is probably the one that I'm most proud of, mostly because that's one of the few things that I've worked on that people actually recognize. So, it doesn't really matter who from where or what. Hi, buddy. Yeah, so that was, that's probably one that I'm most proud of. It's gonna settle or launch, who knows. Alright, so, a dream costume. Oh boy, so, for those of you that follow me on Pinterest, so, there's a reason why I work best with a designer. I like all the things, which is very convenient for my line of work, because pretty much anything that someone asks me to do, I'm excited about. But yeah, so as far as what's next, I have slightly narrowed ones down, narrowed down to these ones I definitely want to make eventually, these ones I haven't made yet, and yeah, But when it really comes down to it, there's so many cool things in history that I want to try, and eventually I'll probably get to it. All right, so a sewing task that you hate and a sewing task that you love. A sewing task that I hate, timbre. Timbre, I hate timbre. My sampler for it in grad school looked like a frowny face because I kept, the little hook that you do chain stitch with through net when you're starting out anyway. I dropped it so many times, just started completely all over, and the final one that I did very simple frowny face. And that one I finally finished, and that one's in my book. Wig ventilating too, not my thing. Maybe something to do with small hooks and dropping things, and maybe, I don't know. But for the most part, there's not a whole lot that I hate. As far as things that I love patterning. I love making patterns. The harder the better. That's really fun. I also like pad stitching. I'm a tailor, so suits and three-dimensional stuff. That's pressing too, since that's another thing that tailors tend to differ a little bit from women's custom-made stuff for the most part. We tend to press more and use pins less. More or less. It's a broad generalization. Everyone you talk to is going to be a little bit different, but that's a start. All right, so wool or silk? Oh man, that is tough. That is a very tough question. Probably wool. It's like the silly putty of fabrics. It's great. I love it. You can manipulate it to do basically anything that you want. As long as it's at least 80%, you can get it to curve over things, and you can curve it into inside curves and outside curves, and you can keep a whole lot more seam allowance in for when you let it out for the next person who wears it, or whatever. Oh, it's great. But silk is gorgeous. It's got that luster to it. But and high tensile strength and so forth. Probably third after that would be linen. Only fiber that gets stronger when it's wet, and it's cool. I live in LA. It is hot here. I'm not originally from LA. I'm from the cold north in Minnesota, and it's also beautiful to work with. Cotton after linen, probably. Horsehair is in there somewhere too. That's pretty awesome, especially in high-mel and goat hair and getting the stiff indentations and your facings. English is hard. Anyway, let's see here. A themed event or a mixed pick your own event? Well, I mean, the one that I do the most is, from my armor, you might be able to tell, SCA, which is a medieval recreationist group. And the nice thing about this armor is that I get to actually hit people in it, and they get to try and hit me back, and it is, functional and steel and so forth. And that's a mixed big tent organization. You get anything pre-17th century ish. And it just requires an attempt at a clothing from there. You go to it to learn how to do stuff, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, the cool thing about that is that you get to run into people who are super excited about their particular thing, and you can get I'm sure some of you on here follow Morgan Donner. She's a Laurel, which is a Lifetime Achievement Award for people who are very good at arts and teach it and are part of the community teaching how to do really cool stuff, right? And as you probably gotten the vibe from her, most Laurels that you'll ever run into, you get them started on the thing that they're interested in, and they will bend your ear about all of the cool stuff that you ever wanted to know on the topic, and it's really fun. That's probably my favorite part of that. But at the same time, I got a prompt at one point this last week that had me looking into one of my favorite books, to say nothing of The Dog, which is set in June of 1888, and I think I pinned hundreds of clothing specifically for what would have been worn in all of the different layers in June of 1888. Yeah, so specificity is fun as well. You get to do the deep dives and look at all the cool details, and that's really fun. And you get to geek out on similar stuff that's researched. So there are pluses and minuses of both. In general, I'd probably go with the broader spectrum just because I tend to be a generalist. So there's more for me to hear about. But specificity is fun too. All right, so big ball or intimate dinner. I'm a terrible dancer, like really bad. I game to try, but and then I don't hear very well either, and so in large group settings, even when they're calling out what you're supposed to do, I will miss things. And that doesn't go well. I've done it. It is fun. I would highly recommend everyone trying it. Just not very often for me. Intimate dinners, yeah, that's where it's at. I can hear what people are actually saying and get specific, like, interesting stuff to talk about and hear about, and food. I obviously like food. I mean, part of this is that it's a Globos breastplate, but I am also not a dainty and delicate flower, that's for sure. Yeah, so... Although, I have to say, having been to very large events, like, 100 people on either side in armor walking towards each other, and you can feel the ground shake, and it's so exciting. And so that is also fun. Like, group activities where I don't necessarily have to hear very well. Or dance. Alright, so let's see here. Machine sew or hand sew? Oh, that very much depends on what I'm doing and what my deadline is. And there's all sorts of stuff that if it's of an era where they wouldn't have, hi sweetie, they wouldn't have had machine sewing, then I don't want to have any machine sewing showing. Like that's, ooh, say that 5 times fast. Machine sewing showing. Nope, I'm not doing that 5 times. Anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, you don't want to see that. You want to have that shove someone out of their experience of seeing something. You don't want to have things that are horrible, but you do what you gotta do sometimes. Like, if someone comes up to you on a trailer and it's like, we gotta get this on the person in 5 minutes, or, we're gonna have to slow down shooting and that's gonna cost us like $3 million, you do what you gotta do to get it done. And that's okay. Like, you look at a lot of the classic movie costumes, there is some janky stuff, and even with historical costumes, like a lot of the piecings of things and all the pattern matching and so forth, there is some janky sewing out there, especially 17th century and like 18th century. You run into some seriously janky sewing on the insides of some of the stuff that you look at. I mean, they had very fast turnarounds. Same sort of thing with, 1850s and 1860s, where they started to come out with, 1860s was, not to get too far into the weeds of this, but 1860s was when they were starting to push more specialized sizes and so forth with Ketelay and Civil War, American Civil War, and all of that. And so there's more factory work, but there was also all sorts of writings for pretty much ever of, those poor seamstresses, they never slept, and that poor one died of exhaustion and blah, blah, blah. And not to go too far into, like, the ethics of sewing and, that's depressing. Let's skip over the triangle shirt factory fire. You can go someplace else for that. How about that for machine sewing or hand sewing? I like the zen of hand sewing. I like the speed of machine sewing. That's not really an answer, but anyway. Wigs, hair pieces, or own hair. Well, this is it, folks. This is the longest it's been for a while. And even when I had hair down to my butt, there wasn't all that much of it. So, for the most part, I mean, if I'm in a helmet, nobody cares, right? If I'm in guys' clothes, nobody cares, right? I'll stick a hat on it, it'll be fine, right? Or I'll have a hat on. Like, for the most part, if I'm doing 14th century women's wear, I'm throwing a veil on, you know, put some fake hair underneath there and go. I do like hats. I like hats that hide my hair. I don't like having to deal with it. I don't like having to get it to do things. I did used to braid it a lot, but I don't miss it. It's a lot cooler this way, and as I've talked about, I now live in the land of warm. All right, so let's see here. 5 small businesses. So the ones that I run into the most in my work are not terribly small. Like, I'm sure if you've seen me on forums, I'm like Wawak and Banamishes and, you know, the bigger ones, and Be Black and Sons and so on and so forth. But there are some small businesses that are amazing. There's some that are smaller than others. I mean, Red Threaded is not that small of a business, but it's a great business. Like, the quality of the work is really beautiful, and they do have different levels that you can buy at, which, especially for, depending on what your budget is, top notch. You can get really good stuff that will serve its purpose for relatively inexpensive, considering that they're paying their workers well and they're a good place to work at. From what I've heard, like, it's a small world. The grapevine has got around. Apparently they're excellent bosses. So that's always something that I look forward to, because since, you know, union and all that jazz, like, that's important to me. Let's see, Richard the Thread. They're adorable. If you ever are out here for costume college and get a little bit further out than the LA textile district, actually going to Richard the Thread is a hoot. Yeah, they're very nice, and it's a very small store. They only work a little bit, and well, not a little bit, but they're only open for very short periods of time for the actual thing. It's mostly online sales, but to be able to go in and see their absolutely adorable little store, it's fantastic. And they are very knowledgeable. So if you call them up and ask them for something specific, they will know if they have it or not, and they will know if that's what you actually want or not, which is fantastic. I'm sure a lot of you have gone to ISW. That's not terribly small, but as far as a place to get decent fabric around here, if you want to find it quickly, ISW is a good place to go, like wool flannels, and man, they're very nice stuff. And it's a good business. Yeah, they have high quality stuff. The prices are fairly reasonable. If you want really good prices, though, S.R. Harris. I used to work there, so it's a little bit of a bias there. Yeah, they pay more than minimum wage. The business model is kind of odd, but the fabrics are amazing, and you can get some really good deals. Like, I totally miss the $5 a yard silk buckets. Like, oh man, yeah. If you ever get out to the Minneapolis area, S.R. Harris is worth the pilgrimage. It is family owned. It was originally owned by Sid Harris, and he was still there when I was there. I'm sure he's still around. He shows up. You know, he is retired now, but it's now run by his son. Yeah, American Duchess, obviously. Oh man, I remember back in the recession when they gave me, you know, hope that things would actually move forward. You know, like, I graduated into the worst part of the recession right out of undergrad as a costumer, and being able to see their business grow to, you know, be awesome is fantastic. And I finally have a pair of their shoes and some of their stuff. Granted, I got the shoes secondhand because selling doesn't pay much. Like, it's a lot better now that I'm union and working on things that are bigger, but for the longest time, I do have student loans though, so. But goal in life to be able to not have to worry about how much I'm paying for American Duchess shoes, because they're amazing and fantastically made and very comfortable. So there's that. Let's see. Oh, I think that's 5. I think. Let's see if I can count. Ooh, 5 YouTubers to check out. Please forgive me my pronunciation of these. There will be links in here and in the doodad down there. One of my favorites is Jewel Thigson. She has a lot of open captions, and her closed captions are fantastic, and it's so soothing to listen to. And it's quiet and beautiful, and her aesthetics are amazing, and her work is really high quality too, which is it's always fun to see, you know. And it seems like she enjoys it too, so I really like watching her. Empress of Buttons. She reminds me a lot of when I first started in school, with the tutu on her head and and being all gung ho, and it's exciting to see new people to the industry being excited and not downtrodden, and you know, learning all sorts of really awesome stuff. And she has one video with closed captions, and that was awesome. Fitter Hunter, she also has some closed captions, which is great. She has some really cool knit stuff and some Victorian underwear, which is always fun. I'm trying to stick away from the ones that you might have, well, that most people are probably already following if they're doing this. If you finally get to my weird corner of the universe, let's see if you see some of these guys. I do like the Welsh Viking. He doesn't have closed captions other than the auto-generated ones, which are rough. But he has some good stuff, and he has pretty pictures. So there's that. Also, to put in a plug-in for, you know, some nepotism and bias here, Lady of the Wilderness and Lori Kurtz. I went to school with both of them, and they're both incredibly knowledgeable and ridiculously nice people. And Lady of the Wilderness runs her own business, and she has the finest, most beautiful caps you've ever seen in your life. It's just droolable. And Lori Kurtz has all sorts of really basic classes, and she teaches this a lot. Her online videos are a lot less of the let's throw this together and hope for the best, like one of the ones that some people might do. But if you want some really solid basics, go check her stuff out. No, seriously. Let's see, we're on to 12. We're getting there. Favorite color? Blue. Let's see here. Pearls or sparkles? Pearls. Sparkles remind me of glitter. And glitter. Oh, I have too much memory of very glittery snot and sweeping up literal pounds of glitter from putting things together, which is probably not what I was meant, but no, pearls. Pearls don't. Ugh. Alright, the dream costume trip. Oh, there's so many. I was really hoping to get to costume college this year. I've never been, despite living in LA. I hadn't really heard of it before of, Bernadette Banner put up a video, and, oh no, I'm forgetting her name now, but I'll put it up here, I promise. She did a really fun video of costume college, and I was like, I need to go. This sounds awesome. And I was all set to go. Nope. Darn virus. Go figure. Next year. Hopefully. If we're good. Maybe we'll get over this if we're good. But anyway. Alright. Favorite cocktail. I don't really drink all that much. And usually when I do, it's like cider or vodka or like my aunt makes a really good Wisconsin style old fashioned. That is ridiculously tasty. Yeah. I can't say I've really been an old-fashioned of when anyone else really makes it, but she makes really good old-fashioned. Let's see. And it's the best of company, which is really what you want when you're drinking. It's less about the alcohol and more about the company, more or less. I say that being extremely picky with what I drink. So I guess there's that. Which customer would you like to meet? Yes, I want to meet everyone. I love stories, and I love hearing how people get interested in this kind of thing, and y'all sound so cool and interesting, and I would love to meet you, the person watching this. Maybe at costume college, maybe at some other thing, who knows, but you know, through your YouTube videos is really fun, through comments and through Facebook, that's also really fun. And I really look forward to meeting more people who are interested in history and are excited and nerds. My flavor of nerds. It's great. Yeah. Let's see, plain or patterned. It depends on what I'm making. But I tend to prefer plain stuff because then I can flex on some of the cool detail work, and you can see it. Like, there's no point in doing pin tucks on calico. I've done it. I've done a shirt of calico with inset lace and 5mm pin tucks that I spent, a week on, like a solid week on, and it never saw the light of day. It was in an opera, and pretty much it served the purpose of the sweat guard for the beautiful jacket she was wearing over it, and but I got to make it, and I liked it, and I got paid, so I don't care. That was a fun project. But yeah, you couldn't tell from like 8 foot away that it was pin tucked. Patterns are like that. But at the same time, like a plaid pattern matching and pattern matching crazy patterns, when I have the time, I totally get into that. That's really fun. But if I don't have the time, like doing plaid on a short time turnaround, use a pattern to make your own. I make my own. I haven't used a commercial pattern since high school, I think. It's been a while. Once you start making your own, it's a lot easier in a lot of ways. Yeah. I also come from a theatrical background, so I like to hide a lot more seam allowance in places and cut it down in other places, and I like to mark my stitching line rather than just my cutting line, and so fussy. I have opinions, who knew? Alright, so let's see here. Favorite era to wear? 1360s. That's what I wear the most often, because that's what I fight the most in, and I do that weekly instead of like pretty much any other era. It's whatever I'm feeling the day, and honestly, I don't make all that much for myself. I prefer making stuff for other people. It's easier to fit stuff, and you know. Alright, favorite era to make. Making stuff for other people, and yes, see Pinterest. Like, alright, last one, 20, we're done, we're almost there. One thing you guys don't know about me. Pretty much anything, I think. Like, I haven't really started much on here. Yeah, so hopefully this has been slightly educational as to, hi, I exist. It's nice to meet you. Please feel free to ask me whatever you'd like, and hopefully this was enjoyable for y'all.